Hello, and welcome to our podcast today, third in a series from Hope House. My name is Ray Pagentini, founder, and today we're talking with Dr. Michael Swadowicz. He'll be talking about grief and trauma, and at the end of our session, I will be presenting 5 ways which people can help themselves without using chemicals and or prescription drugs, and some of the latest research on helping themselves heal. We may get into EFT and a few other areas today, but we'll try to time it to give you a half hour of our attention. So, Mike, good morning. Take it away.
Thanks, Ray. Good morning to you as well. And every time we're going to sit down and discuss what we're going to talk about, new ideas pop in my head, new areas pop in my head, and so this is one of those days. I was talking with my wife yesterday, and she went out to breakfast with a friend of hers, and her friend said somebody in her family had committed suicide, and it was a very small town where the suicide took place. And she said that her mother had a lie about the suicide. And that struck it struck a chord with me, because that's what my mom did with my dad. She told everybody he had a heart attack for like a zillion years. And our neighborhood was like a small town. It was in Chicago, you just have neighborhoods, and everybody's around each other, and seemingly everybody knows everybody knows each other's business. So lying seemed to be a viable alternative, and given the information I have now, it was probably the best way to go, because quite frankly, it wasn't anybody else's business. So it made me think, why would you lie about something like that? And the irony is, when I wrote my dissertation and it was published and it was done, my mom told everybody, Dr. Mike, tell everybody what you wrote about. And I said, well, her husband, my dad, committed suicide, and she couldn't have been more proud. It was amazing how, tell the truth, it'll set you free, I guess. But I never saw her act like that before, once the cat was out of the proverbial bag.
So basically, you gave her a voice that she didn't have.
Yes. And she lived in shame and guilt her whole life. And it was, I saw a picture of her on Facebook at one of those anniversary things on Facebook, and it was her. And she had spent over 47 years being the moderator of an old folks club at our local parish. And when she started, she was the youngest, and when she ended her career there, she was the oldest lady in the old folks group. She had stayed there so long. But I know that she lived, as I said in another podcast, she lived like a martyr, and a lot of it was based on shame and guilt. And when we talk about, why do people lie, I have it written right here. Is it guilt? Is it shame? It's both. And then my sister told me about a movie one time. She said, you got to see this movie. It's called The Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And the theme of the movie, it's an older film, and the theme of the movie is a girl has an alcoholic father, and her home is so chaotic, she just makes up this story about how great her home life was. And I thought that to be very ironic that this all came to me yesterday. And last time I talked about memories and how memories are formed. And I went back and reviewed what I had studied, and I learned about false and distorted memories and how you make things up. Your childhood, you don't want to remember those things, so you create a fantasy world, and that's where facts become distorted. And that's where things become distorted. And it's amazing to me. Right before we got here, I was talking to Ray, and I said, we talk about this stuff a lot, but the thing that appeals to me and doesn't make it a downer, so to speak, is the human condition. And I love watching people. I love meeting people. I love talking to people and seeing how they react to various, with us it's trauma in their lives. And everybody's different. So with that, Ray?
Some of the ways people can help themselves, because there are a number of different healing modalities that people can use. Number one is talk therapy or psychotherapy. There are some outstanding therapists out there. We can give you references, but there's some world-renowned big names that are just leaders in the field. So psychotherapy, talk therapy is really good. One other concept that's really coming to the fore the last few years is called EMDR, eye movement and desensitization reprocessing. It is an excellent healing modality. You get the right person to work with you. You're basically using your eyes to help heal and reprogram your brain. The third thing that people are matriculating to quite a bit, something I need to start, is yoga. I think it's the body position and the movements, and a big part of yoga is the breathing, because I think there's so much that's neglected in terms of breathing. Fourth is movement, dance, activities. I just read of a situation in Boston where there's one judge that when you do a minor felony, he sentenced you to a Shakespearean acting class where you do movement and help with the heal. The fifth one is neural feedback, where they'll put electrodes at the back of your head, helping you reprogram and reprocess. The last one, which I don't talk a lot about, but the more and more I read about it, the more and more I'm impressed about it, is the use of psychedelics. I have never used psychedelics, and yet there is so much research coming out on two big areas. Number one is ecstasy, which is called Molly or MMDA. All the kids that are going to many of the raves are using it. It's very common at a lot of concerts. And to me, it's just mind expanding. It's really helping people done. In Europe, they're doing studies where they put a person in, lie him on a couch for 8 hours. There's 2 psychologists or psychiatrists there, and they'll give him ecstasy for 8 hours. And some of the counseling and processing that goes through is just phenomenal. The other one, which there's a French psychologist that uses it, and there's a number of people that are interested in the United States where they go to South America, and in the jungles of the Amazon, they use this drug/drink called ayahuasca. I know a little bit about it. I'm scared of it because I'm afraid of it, I guess. But there's a lot of people who swear by it as a great therapeutic tool. So those are some of the things that you can use. The breathing, I think, would be really simple and easy for people to learn because we really don't think about our breathing. And I could just show you a few right now. The first one that I use, we call box breathing. They teach that in the military, where you can just imagine a box. And so what you would do would go up the right-hand side of the box. You'd inhale for 4 seconds. Across the top, you hold it for 4. When you get to the other side, you release it for 4, and then you complete the box with no air in your lungs. And as an aside, I've studied Olympic and professional athletes for years. I've been coaching 50 years, and a concept that's trickled down finally is to do some of the activities, baseball, pitching, batting, do those activities without air in your lungs. Really calm your body down. So that's box breathing. The other one is, think of an inverted triangle with the point on the bottom. 3 seconds of a deep breath. Hold for 3 when you go across, and then let it out. And you have to do that quite a few times just to calm your body down and help yourself just relax. The other one that I like, which I use I combine it with essential oils, is 5-7-8 breathing, and I alternate the nostrils, and this one really helps people relax and just calm themselves down. Is basically you use the thumb and the middle finger. So what I would do is I would pinch the opposite nostril. I'd leave the one nostril on the right side open. I'd breathe in deep for 5 seconds, pinch, hold for 7 seconds, and then release out of the opposite nostril. So if you can do that 5 times, a couple times a day, in the morning when you wake up, in the afternoon if you get a little bit of a break, but all you're doing is controlling your breathing and you're relaxing, and it's activating the parasympathetic nervous system in your brain. So there's a couple other areas in breathing which I won't touch on, but there are some great professionals. You can find them on YouTube who go into the breathing and the positive properties of breathing properly. Mike?
I'm thinking about what you just said. I always breathe. I was somewhere last Wednesday, and this woman was sitting next to me, and I might have been breathing all over her. I didn't mean to, but it relaxes me. That in and out it just relaxes me, and it really helps. I've been doing it for years, and people think I'm having a heart attack. All I'm doing is just breathing to kind of center myself. And I like yoga. I've done yoga, and it's almost like a life changer in terms of it's just so peaceful. Okay, getting back to my area, with the how do memories become distorted, ironically enough, we started talking about the disassociation, where you leave your body in terms of trauma and times of trauma. And when you do that, your memories they are not as accurate as they may or could be. And when I interviewed my sisters about our lives, they talked about things, and some of the stories were completely different. And I know it was based on their individual trauma, the experiences that occurred to them in our house. So that was just interesting to me. And just as an aside, every single time I try to look for something and try to stay on topic, or I do, but I started thinking yesterday that the area that we talk about is like a big city, and it's called, let's get corny, it's like Trauma City. And every street has a different name, every street has a different symptom, and the corner shop way in the back is Dr. Ray and Dr. Mike, the healers, trying to find out and trying to help people make their way to the healing place. But there's so many different forms of trauma. There's so many different, even this memory thing and this disassociation thing. I have it. There's a list of 10, I said last podcast, I think there's a list of 10 symptoms. I have 8. And I didn't even know it existed, where you just leave. And that made me, that'll certainly cloud a memory. But that brought me to the fight or flight. I'm a flighter. When I would be confronted, my brain would just freeze. And if I'm with people who are really aggressive, I don't know what to do. My brain doesn't work anymore, and I just stare at them. I can't come up with any answers. And, 3 hours later, I go, I should have said this or I should have said that. And my younger brother was 1 when my mom told me when he was a little baby, she used to hold him so my dad wouldn't beat her up. I didn't know any of that. I was in the other room somewhere being disassociated. And so now my brother, if people get mad at my brother or people start yelling at my brother or get confrontational with him, he just goes away. It's like he's not there. And he just looks at you, and it's almost as if his brain is saying, are you done yet? And when you are, he'll move on and do something else. I didn't know what any of this was. That's why I bring it up. This disassociation thing it's really intriguing to me, what you'll do to protect yourself. And that's when I got into fight or flight. I thought, I thought I was like I didn't like fighting. I don't like fighting because I grew up in a house of violence. I don't like hitting. I think I've been in 3 fights in my life, and 2 of them were with my best friend. I don't do it because in my head there's something there that resonates that reminds me of really bad stuff. And so I've been sort of a pacifist for that reason. And I'm finding out now that's not a bad reason to be a pacifist. I just grew up that way and I don't like it. So I think there's 4 things with regard to fight or flight. And that's called fight. Well, it's a psychologist's definition of there's flight, there's fight, there's freeze, and Ray doesn't like the last one, it's fawn. And I don't even know what that means, but the last one is people will faint when they're stressed to a certain degree. Again, I just learned about this. The freezing thing really resonated with me because that's what I do.
The fawn concept, Mike, comes from something that happens in nature. the fawn, a baby deer, whenever they see a coyote, if the mother is not there trying to protect it, that fawn will try to get alongside the coyote and befriend the coyote, not knowing that the coyote is going to turn around, snap and bite him and kill him, but that's what fawning is. That's why.
Well, that's ironic you state it that way, because that's what I would try and do. If I met somebody who was really mean to me, the old adage, kill them with kindness, it's an adage. It doesn't work all the time. People perceive kindness as weakness sometimes, and I really thought they perceived that in me, where someone could be so mean to me and I would just try to be their friend. So that fawn thing, that's interesting how you brought that up, because in a sense that was me for a long time. But these are all parts of me. And again, the reaction to this definition of fight or flight, it's a response to stress. And these little 4 or 5 areas that we'll discuss now and in the future are just responses to stress and how I would deal with it. And what was important to me was learning about it. These last, we were talking before we got here, this month has been a whole new learning experience for me of flipping over rocks. And I didn't want to use that metaphor anymore, so I said Trauma Town. That's where I live, on Trauma Street, right?
There's so much to that fight and flight, and what I like to use when I speak to groups, and we will do presentations for your group. Just call us and we can contract for that. But when I speak to groups, I like to pick on the women a little bit by asking them, tell me about a creepy guy you met, or who has ever here met a creepy guy? And usually every hand in the room goes up, which is pretty bad comment on men. But we ask them what happens. Shallowed breathing. They get a knot in their stomach. They literally want to cover up, bring their shoulders in. The hairs on their arm and in the ear, they all like stand up and trying to tell you to just be aware of what's going on. I was taught by a good medicine man and medicine woman on the Lakota reservation for over 30 years. And you said something earlier, Mike, which I will disagree with you. I'm not a healer, nor do I propose to be. But what I can do is I can help you get your body ready to heal through breathing exercises, through movement, through some eye movement desensitization, some therapy that I'm trained in using, as well as we talked about breathing earlier, and now I'd like to just share, if I can, a Qigong meditation. Qigong is a tremendous area to investigate about helping yourself feel better and maintaining it over your lifetime. Hope House is lucky to have a Qigong master as part of our group who does Qigong activities once every week. Really, he's phenomenal. You should get to know him. But the Qigong meditation that I like to use involves the hands, and it's very simple. All you're doing is you're reaching up and you're trying to gain the universal energy from the universe, bring it down, okay? Shake your hands out quite a bit, and this takes about 7 minutes. You can do this in the morning or in the afternoon. The first thing you want to do is you want to make a fist, and then where the middle finger is exactly in the palm of your hand, you put your thumb on that middle finger and you press. You breathe in, hold it, and then stop pressing and breathe out. Breathe in, press it, stop pressing and breathe out. So you'll do that for 1 minute on this part of your hand. The second area you'll go to is where the large finger and the thumb meet. There's a web out here, which they use for, Qigong masters use for help with food issues. But if you go back here, this will help for toothaches and headaches, as well as just clearing your mind. So you'll press hard, and you'll feel that pressure point. Press hard, breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. And I'm sorry, the one area I skipped was after you do the first part of your palm, just shake your hands. Get the blood going, everything moving. Shake your hands for about 30 seconds, and then go back to the second part of the hand. Okay, so you're going to do that on each hand for about 1 minute. So it should take maybe 7 minutes total. The last one, if I may pull this up, is you go to the crinkle in your wrist or the bend in your wrist, and you take these 3 fingers and you put them right here. And where the index finger ends up, you put the thumb, and then you press from the opposite side. And this is really good for digestion and really, really bad gas. It just helps your digestive system. So the same thing, you just breathe in, make sure you hold it, and then breathe out. And sometimes it's nice just to have a clock or a watch or something to look at it. You don't want to rush, but you want to make sure that you do sets, 1 minute sets for each part of your hand. And then as you go on, there's another one where you're going to look at the mid-centers of your body, where you're going to go to where people would call the third eye, and do pressure and breathing in there. Do that for about a minute. And again, you can do this in total in 15 minutes a day. Then go 3 fingers below your breastbone and press in there. Hold it, and then release. And you'll feel some pain, and that's okay to feel pain. And the last one that's along the midline of the body is just below the navel, 3 inches. In Qigong, it's called the lower dantian. And you just press in there, put one hand over the other, press in, breathe, and let go. And if you can do that, you can just regulate how you're feeling that day. And you can do it a couple times a day, usually morning and afternoon. For some reason, the Qigong masters we know had told us not to do it at night. There's different activities you can do at night with that. So that's our Qigong meditation with the midline. But I strongly encourage people to try that. And there's some really good things online that you can get to. Some great Qigong masters that will happily share that with you. Mike?
I think this is a chicken or the egg thing I'm going to talk about right now. Because first, when you're born and you're in a stressful environment, a traumatic environment growing up, is it first you learn about disassociation? You remove your body from there, even as a little kid. Maybe you'll go in the other room and play with your toys. Maybe you'll put your hand over your ears, and maybe you'll just run out of the house. Now, does that happen first? And does that lead to, again, I just said that, disassociation? And does disassociation lead to the fight or flight mode? And last, does it lead to hypervigilance? Because hypervigilance is, I talked about this before, you're acutely aware of your environment. And you scan the room looking for potential danger because you've been trained to do that. So if a dad walks in a room who's going to beat up your sister, you are in overdrive. What's going to happen? So I didn't have to do, my dad left me alone. And I was born with a cleft palate. I had all these operations. I said that before. And I also think it was an Eastern European first son thing, where I was like king of the house, and I didn't want to be king of anything. And the fact that, my sisters referred to me as the golden boy because when I would go to the hospital and come home, I'd get all these toys. I would have traded the toys in a heartbeat for no surgeries. And it made me feel bad. I didn't want to be the golden boy. I just wanted to be their brother. So getting back to that, which came first? And I really think it's disassociation came first for me. Well, first the trauma in the house, because I could not remember. My sisters would tell me it happened a lot. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I remember 2 times. And that's it. And I can't, not anything else. And it shocked me. How come I don't remember that? So I did some research and came up with this. But the hypervigilance, what's problematic about when you have this as a kid, if you don't know what's going on, it stays with you. So now as a 24-year-old person, you're looking in a room going, I don't like that guy, and you don't even know why you don't like him. We can talk about energy and things like that, but being hypervigilant doesn't mean you're right all the time. So I would come to these conclusions that were wrong and go up and talk to the guy and find out he was a really nice guy, or he wasn't anything like I thought he was. So that's what's problematic about when you grow up like this and you carry it with you it changes as you grow older. Your stages of development mean different stages of reacting and dealing with this grief or this trauma, and it's really bizarre. What's wrong with you? And you're like, I don't know. And how come you think this way? And I don't know. I don't want the whole world to know what I grew up in, and I didn't find out what I grew up until much later. And I'm talking 40s and 50s in my age bracket. And that was a whole nother traumatic experience about what else don't I know? And I felt that way about everything I dealt with. What else don't I know? Who's lying to me now? Because I would hear 10 different stories about even my dad. He was a really nice guy. Oh, God, he would help whenever we wanted. And then I'd go home, and my sisters would say, I'm glad he was dead. He was a monster. And I'm just this kid going, what are you talking about? So I had no real frame of reference. So I had to use these different modalities. Again, the disassociation, the fight or flight, that was easy for me, the fight or flight. Because I just glanced at my notes when Ray was talking, and sometimes the freezing thing is good because you get time to evaluate the situation, where you remove yourself, even though bodily you're there, you remove yourself and you can evaluate. And that seems to make sense to me, but I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know I was hypervigilant until like 5 years ago. How come I think this way all the time? So again, these healing modalities, and that was the wrong word about healers. I just meant like put a shingle out on their house in Trauma Town, and this is where you can go to talk about things like this, because it helps me immensely. So, Ray?
The hypervigilance is critical. When I was growing up, we had a guy from the neighborhood. Well, my whole neighborhood went to Vietnam, basically. And he came back with this serious case of post-traumatic stress. At the time, we didn't know of it. We just thought Roland was crazy as hell. But you could drop a book on a table, and he would hit the floor. The worst day of the year for him, when he got back for about 10 years, was the 4th of July. He would barricade himself in his house, wouldn't come out. We'd bring him food. And he was always ducking. And I had a great teacher a great counseling professor who taught some really off-the-wall things. But he said, if you're ever walking in a classroom and you want to figure out which kids are facing some severe abuse or who are hypervigilant, he says, as you're walking up and down the aisle, he said, make a quick movement with your hand. And most people are just going to look at you. The one that's being beat, brutalized, whatever, you make that movement, he's going to duck. It's instinctively, even though you're not going to hit him. And I used that when I was in the classroom, whenever I had a hunch that, Mike had talked about the freezing part. In the military, they call that the 1,000-yard stare. You've just been so traumatized, your eyes are somewhere else. And you can see their eyes are somewhere else. The freeze, the fight, flight, freeze comes into play, especially in my work with abused kids, sexually abused girls, where they do freeze, and that's when the molestation happens, or the rape, or the penetration, and they can get up. And I saw a video one time at a conference. It was very confidential, but of a young lady getting in the projects, getting on the elevator on the first floor, and it had cameras on it. And as the door closed, this guy stopped it between floors, the elevator, and raped her. And as the camera was on her, she became like a rag doll. There was nothing there. And then when they got to the 20th floor, he opened the door, dropped her. He left. She got up, pulled her skirt down, and walked out like nothing happened. So to me, that was the ultimate. If you want to really take a look at dissociative order, I strongly recommend an article we have. We can recommend it for you, because traumatized and abused kids and returning military personnel with PTSD, there's 18 symptoms. Traumatized and abused kids will have 16 of the same symptoms. It's uncanny how close they are. So that's where my counseling has gone from, working in the high school population with, right now I love working with veterans. These guys can tell us so much if we only listen. And their body keeps score, so you know exactly what happened. The difficult part about the military is a lot of them are coming back now pretty scarred. And the suicide rate among the veterans, daily suicide rate, is astronomical. And it's not necessarily my age. The Vietnam guys that came back, 7 years old, the house is paid for, the kids are grown, they still hear the voices at night. You're getting a lot of these younger guys coming back with traumatic brain injury because of the advances in field medicine. They're living, and they come back and they struggle with that. Great book I can recommend, a book called Until Tuesday, which is a big part of helping people heal, helping guys in the military heal. It's about a Lance Corporal from the Marine who was in some really heavy action area. He came back and he lived in his basement. He never left. Someone brought him a dog. The dog's name was Tuesday. He bonded with this dog. This dog helped him grow out of his post-traumatic stress. He could walk him, take him to the store, shop with him, and he's helped other veterans deal with that by just having a pet. And pets are huge healers. People don't realize that. In our family, we always had dogs. I can remember 3 years old having a dog until we put our dog down, our last dog a few years ago. They're family members. They really are. They give you unconditional love. At a young age, you learn how to talk to them and have them do things for you that you feel a kinship with these animals. And again, ours was all dogs, but they were tremendous, and they're great healers. These what do they call those dogs that help people heal? Comfort dogs or comfort animal. And some people need that, and some people get along better with animals than some people. And to be perfectly honest with you, I feel there are some animals better than some of the people I've run across over the years, because it's just the unconditional love, and they want nothing from you. They have no agenda. They just want to be around you. So having a pet is really important, because now you're taking care of something bigger than yourself. Something's more important in your life every day. Same thing with plants. That's a big part of healing. You're taking care of something else. You become part of something bigger than yourself. And it's not that they rely on you, but it's a connection. It's a partnership. You take care of that plant's going to take care of your house by giving off oxygen and taking in your carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen for the plant. And I think I'm way off from where we started, but that's Mike.
I just wanted to finish with this story of when I was 19 years old. My friend played hockey, and we were going to go drinking after his hockey game. So we hid the beer in the snow where the Zamboni dumps all the snow when it does the ice. And he ended up getting injured during the game, so we had to leave our beer in the snow. I'm driving the car because he got hurt. And his dad starts talking about these hippie Vietnam. It was in 19, so it was like in the Vietnam War era when protesting was a big deal. And I said to him after he's doing the wave the flag, and I get where he was coming from, but I said, if a kid can go in the Army at 19, why can't he drink? He screamed at me so loud, I almost wet my pants. And I wondered, aside from the screaming part, why that scared me so much. And it's from what I talked about today, it was from how I grew up. Screaming really did a lot to my psyche. I froze. I don't think I talked to the guy for 2 years after that. And we ended up being like really good friends, but as our relationships, and I grew older and he grew older, but that moment, I'll never forget it. And that is the best illustration I can give of this trauma that goes on from a kid to now the teenage years into your adult years. And that's it for me.
Our next podcast, we're going to focus on specific healing modalities. We're going to talk about Reiki, emotional freedom techniques. We're going to talk about music therapy. We're going to talk about sound therapy, sight therapy, even smell therapy, using the essential oils. So with that, we wish you well. If you need help, get it. If not, help somebody else. Have a great week.